Before we dive in, imagine this. You step off a plane, expecting nothing but another routine flight. But within minutes, security is surrounding you. A flight attendant is in tears, claiming you did something unspeakable. The headlines explode. Your name is everywhere. You know you're innocent, but no one cares. What if your whole life could be destroyed by a lie? Tonight, we uncover the shocking truth behind a high-profile scandal, a twisted conspiracy, and the man who refused to be another casualty. Before we get started, let us know, what time are you listening and where are you tuning in from? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Marcus Johnson adjusted his carry-on bag over his shoulder as he stepped onto the plane. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and faint traces of cabin air freshener filled his nostrils. It was a smell he had grown up with: airports, airplanes, the rhythmic hum of jet engines. This wasn't just any airline. This was Liberty Airlines, the company his father had built from the ground up. But to everyone else on this flight, Marcus was just another passenger. He preferred it that way. Being the CEO's son came with expectations. People watching his every move, questioning whether he deserved his place in the world or if he was just another rich kid riding on his father's success. That's why he worked outside the family business, developing security technology for airlines rather than managing them. He wanted to earn his respect, not inherit it. Finding his seat in the first-class cabin, he settled in, pulling out his tablet to skim through emails. A few rows ahead, a flight attendant in a crisp navy blue uniform moved gracefully between the passengers. She had the kind of effortless poise that made her look like she belonged in a luxury magazine ad. "Excuse me." An elderly woman across the aisle struggled to lift her small suitcase into the overhead bin. Marcus instinctively stood up. "Let me help you with that." The woman smiled, her hands trembling slightly as she stepped back. "Oh, thank you, young man. My grandson would have done the same." As he secured the bag, he heard a quiet but sharp voice from behind. "Sir, I was about to assist her." Marcus turned to see the flight attendant watching him with an unreadable expression. Her name tag read, Sophia Carter. "Didn't mean to step on your toes," Marcus said, offering a polite smile. Sophia didn't return it. Instead, she gave a brief nod and turned away, her posture stiff. Marcus sat back down, brushing off the interaction. People had their moods. Maybe she was just having a long day. But then, as she passed by again, her eyes flickered toward him with something else, a look he couldn't quite place. Not annoyance, something sharper. The plane doors closed, and the captain's voice came over the speaker, welcoming everyone on board. Marcus exhaled slowly, sinking into his seat as the aircraft taxied down the runway. He had no idea that this simple flight would change everything. Marcus had dozed off briefly, the gentle hum of the aircraft lulling him into an easy rest. But the clinking of glasses and soft murmurs of conversation in the first-class cabin pulled him back to wakefulness. Sophia was making her rounds with the drink cart, her expression now perfectly composed. "Would you like anything to drink, sir?" she asked in a neutral tone. "Water, please," Marcus replied. Sophia poured the water, setting it down with just a little too much force. A small splash landed on the tray table. Marcus grabbed a napkin and dabbed at the water. "Thanks." No response. She had already moved on. Something about her felt off. Passengers and flight attendants could be short-tempered, but her behavior toward him had been strangely cold. Still, Marcus wasn't the type to dwell on minor interactions. He turned his attention back to his tablet, scrolling through security reports from his company. Then came the overhead announcement. "Attention passengers, we'll be landing in Los Angeles shortly. Please ensure your seatbelts are fastened." The plane touched down smoothly, rolling toward the gate. Marcus grabbed his bag from under the seat, stretching slightly as he prepared to disembark. But just as he reached the jet bridge, a firm hand clamped onto his arm. "Sir, we need you to come with us." Marcus blinked, turning to face two uniformed airport security officers. Behind them stood Sophia, her eyes red-rimmed, her lips pressed into a trembling line. His stomach dropped. "What's this about?" he asked, his voice steady but sharp. One of the officers shifted, glancing at Sophia before answering. "Miss Carter has filed a report against you for inappropriate conduct during the flight. She claims you made her uncomfortable and acted in a way that violated her personal space. The words hit him like a gut punch. For a moment, Marcus could only stare. Then he let out a breathless, incredulous laugh. You've got to be kidding me. Sophia lowered her gaze, but not before he caught a flicker of something in her eyes. Not fear, not distress, but calculation. Marcus had spent years in boardrooms, watching people maneuver for power, for advantage. He recognized that look. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a setup, and for the first time in his life, he realized that his last name wasn't going to protect him from what came next. Marcus sat in a sterile, windowless airport security office, the hum of fluorescent lights droning overhead. His hands rested on the cool metal table, his mind racing. This was surreal. Moments ago, he had been stepping off a plane. Now he was in a holding room like a criminal. Across from him, an older officer, Detective Harris, skimmed through a folder. He had the worn-out patience of someone who had seen too many cases like this, or maybe cases that weren't like this at all. Mr. Johnson, Harris finally said, placing his hands on the table, Miss Carter has accused you of making repeated unwanted advances during the flight. She says you touched her inappropriately when she came by with the drink cart. Marcus's jaw tightened. That's a lie. Harris sighed, flipping the folder shut. Look, we're not here to play judge and jury. We just need your side of the story. My side? Marcus leaned forward. I barely spoke to her. I asked for water. She barely acknowledged me the whole flight, and now I'm being accused of something I didn't do? Harris studied him for a long moment. Do you know Miss Carter outside of this flight? Marcus scoffed. I've never met her before in my life. Harris exhaled through his nose, sitting back in his chair. Here's the thing. This isn't something we can just brush off. We have a statement from a Liberty Airlines employee. We need to conduct a formal investigation. The door creaked open and a second officer, a younger man with sharp eyes, stepped in. Detective, Miss Carter is in the other room. She's very upset. Of course she was. That was the game. Marcus clenched his fists under the table. He had seen enough corporate maneuvering to recognize when someone was trying to play the victim to gain power. He forced himself to take a slow breath. What happens next? Harris hesitated. We need to hold you for questioning. In the meantime, Liberty Airlines is launching an internal review. Depending on the outcome, this could escalate to a formal charge. Marcus felt the weight of the words settle onto his chest. A formal charge. He had seen men who looked like him, have their lives destroyed by accusations like this. No trial, no facts, just public perception swallowing them whole. His phone buzzed in his pocket, but the officer shook his head. We're holding your personal items until this is resolved. Marcus exhaled slowly, his heartbeat steady, but his mind burning with questions. How far was this going to go? And who was really behind it? By the time Marcus was released from questioning, the world outside had already turned against him. It started with a single news report, a small blog picking up an anonymous insider tip about a Liberty Airlines passenger accused of misconduct. Within hours, major outlets grabbed the story. Son of Liberty Airlines CEO allegedly harassed flight attendant mid-flight. Marcus sat in the back seat of a cab, staring at his phone. The headlines spread like wildfire. His name was everywhere. He tapped his lawyer's contact, Lisa Brooks. The phone barely rang before she answered. Marcus, Lisa's voice was sharp. What the hell is going on? You tell me, he muttered. I just walked out of questioning. I haven't even spoken publicly, and the story's already out. Lisa's keyboard clacked in the background. This isn't organic. Someone leaked this, deliberately, and it's moving way too fast. Meaning? Meaning someone wants this to blow up before you have a chance to fight back? Marcus's stomach turned. Sophia? Lisa hesitated. Maybe, but I don't think she's acting alone. That caught him off guard. What do you mean? Lisa exhaled. I've been looking into her. She's been with Liberty Airlines for 3 years. A clean record. But last year, she made a similar accusation against another high-profile passenger. That case never made it to the press, though. The airline handled it quietly. Marcus stared at the passing city lights through the window. And that guy? Lisa's tone darkened. A black executive in the finance industry. His career never recovered. His grip tightened around his phone. This wasn't just a false accusation. This was a pattern, a setup. And this time, he was the target. Marcus stood by the window of his apartment, staring at the city lights that flickered like distant stars. He had barely been home for an hour, yet the world outside had already branded him guilty. His phone sat on the kitchen counter, lighting up every few seconds. Calls, messages, notifications, an unrelenting digital mob. News anchors dissected his life like a crime scene. Marcus Johnson, son of Liberty Airlines CEO, accused of sexual misconduct on flight. Flight attendant Sophia Carter speaks out. I was terrified. Corporate privilege or accountability? Will Liberty Airlines take action? Marcus clenched his jaw, his fingers digging into the cool marble countertop. They didn't even have the facts, just Sophia's words, and somehow that was enough to flip his entire world upside down. His father hadn't called. Not a single word from the man who had spent his whole life building Liberty Airlines from the ground up. Marcus grabbed his phone, scrolling through his messages. One stood out. Lisa, we need to meet. Now he exhaled sharply, grabbed his keys, and left. Lisa's office was a dimly lit space in the heart of downtown, a fortress of legal books, case files, and the faint aroma of burnt coffee. She sat at her desk, her expression unreadable as Marcus walked in. Shut the door, she said. He did. Tell me you have good news. She didn't. Lisa folded her arms, leaning against her desk. Liberty Airlines just released a statement. They're launching a full investigation. Marcus let out a bitter laugh. That means they're throwing me under the bus. Lisa nodded. Pretty much. He ran a hand over his face. So what do we do? Lisa pushed a folder across the desk. We fight back. Marcus opened it. Inside was a list of names, dates, and documents. Sophia's history. She's done this before, Lisa said. Only difference? Those guys didn't have the resources to fight it. Marcus's gaze darkened. And now she picked the wrong person. Lisa met his eyes. Are you sure about that? Because this won't be easy. The media is against you. Your father's company is against you. The world thinks you're a predator, and Sophia Carter is playing the perfect victim. Marcus closed the folder. I don't care. He wasn't just clearing his name anymore. He was going to expose the truth. By morning, the world had only gotten worse. Marcus sat in his apartment, flipping between news channels. Marcus Johnson refuses to comment as Liberty Airlines investigates accusations. CEO Harold Johnson remains silent on son's scandal. And the worst one, anonymous source claims Marcus has a history of inappropriate behavior. He nearly threw his phone. A history? That was a blatant lie. But the truth didn't matter. Only what people believed. A knock at the door pulled him out of his thoughts. John Miller stood outside, a Liberty Airlines flight attendant. Marcus hesitated before opening the door. You're from the flight? John nodded, glancing down the hallway before stepping inside. Yeah, and I know you didn't do it. Marcus stiffened. Then why didn't you say anything? John swallowed hard. Because if I do, my career is over. Marcus clenched his fists. So you're just gonna let her get away with it? John looked him in the eye. She's done it before, and if she gets away with it this time, she'll do it again. He exhaled. I'll testify. Marcus stared at him, his heartbeat pounding. This was it, the first crack in her story. For the first time since this nightmare began, Marcus saw a way out, and he wasn't going down without a fight. Marcus sat across from John Miller in Lisa's office, the air thick with tension. Outside, the city buzzed like nothing had changed. But inside these four walls, Marcus knew everything was shifting. Lisa pressed record on her phone. Okay, John, let's go from the top. John exhaled, rubbing his palms together. I was working first class that night. I saw everything. He glanced at Marcus. You barely interacted with her. You asked for water and she ignored you. Then when she finally brought it, she was already acting strange. Lisa nodded, jotting down notes. Strange how? John hesitated. Like she was setting something up. She kept glancing around like she wanted someone to see something that wasn't happening. Marcus clenched his jaw. And when the flight landed, she went straight to the cabin crew's phone, John said. She didn't look upset. She looked determined. Lisa leaned forward. So you're saying this wasn't emotional distress? She was planning this? John nodded. I'd bet my job on it. Marcus let out a slow breath. This was the first real evidence in his favor. Not speculation, not gut instinct, a witness. Lisa locked eyes with John. If you come forward, they're going to come after you. John swallowed hard. I know. Marcus studied him. This guy had every reason to stay silent. Liberty Airlines would cut him loose in a heartbeat if they thought he was threatening their image. But he was still here. Marcus reached across the table. Then let's make sure they don't win. John shook his hand. It was on. Lisa didn't waste time. Within hours, an anonymous tip was sent to a journalist known for digging deeper than surface-level headlines. The next morning, the headline changed. New testimony challenges allegations against Marcus Johnson. Marcus scrolled through the article on his phone, his chest tightening. The journalist had covered just enough, a Liberty Airlines employee stepping forward, questioning the validity of the accusation. It wasn't a full acquittal, but it was doubt, and doubt was enough to slow the tidal wave against him. His phone rang. Lisa. You see the article? She asked. Marcus nodded, even though she couldn't see him. Yeah. Lisa hesitated. Marcus, I think we have something bigger. He sat up straighter. What do you mean? Lisa took a breath. I dug deeper into Sophia Carter, and I found something. Marcus braced himself. Tell me. She's not working alone, Lisa said. There's someone backing her. The words sent a chill down his spine. This wasn't just a false accusation. It was a setup. And now, he had a name, and he was going to find out exactly who was pulling the strings. Marcus paced across Lisa's office, his mind racing. The walls were lined with case files and legal documents. But none of them mattered now. Only one name did. Who is backing her? Marcus demanded. Lisa clicked through her laptop, pulling up a financial statement. Richard Owens. Marcus froze. He knew that name. Everyone in the airline industry did. Owens was a senior executive at Sky North Airlines, Liberty's biggest competitor. Lisa turned the screen toward him. I traced a deposit to Sophia's account 3 weeks before your flight. A large deposit. And guess who made it? Marcus clenched his jaw. Owens? Lisa nodded. It was sent through a shell company, but it's him. Marcus exhaled, shaking his head. So this was never about me. Lisa leaned forward. Number. This was about Liberty Airlines. If this scandal destroys your reputation, it taints the company. Liberty loses credibility, stocks drop, and Sky North steps in. Marcus ran a hand over his face. They were using him as a pawn in a corporate war. But that wasn't even the worst part. This means Sophia never cared if the truth came out, he muttered. She just needed the damage done before anyone figured it out. Lisa nodded grimly. And it's working. Marcus sat down, his fist clenching. He was being played, not anymore. He looked up at Lisa. We need to expose this. Lisa tapped her fingers on the desk. We need undeniable proof. If we come at Owens now, he'll bury us in legal red tape. Marcus's mind sharpened. Then we find something he can't bury. Because if Owens wanted a war, Marcus was going to give him one. John's hands shook slightly as he pulled the key card out of his pocket. Are you sure about this? Marcus nodded. You said all crew members submit internal reports, right? John swallowed. Yeah, but we're not supposed to access them. Marcus gave him a look. And you really think they're playing by the rules? John hesitated, then sighed. He swiped the key card. The Liberty Airlines staff lounge door beeped open. They slipped inside. The lounge was empty at this hour, the only sound a distant hum from the vending machine. John led Marcus to a secured file cabinet near the back. This is where crew reports get stored before they're reviewed, John whispered. Marcus scanned the folders. Then he saw it. Sophia Carter. He grabbed the file, flipping it open. His heart pounded. Inside, there was a sealed document. Marcus peeled it open, and his stomach dropped. It was a past accusation against another black executive. And just like Marcus, he had been cleared of all wrongdoing. John's eyes widened. They covered this up. Marcus exhaled. This was it. The smoking gun. Now, it was time to burn their entire scheme to the ground. Marcus sat in Lisa's office, the stolen crew report laid out in front of them. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead, casting shadows across the damning evidence. Lisa skimmed through the pages, her face unreadable. But Marcus could feel the shift in the air. This was it. This proves she's done this before, Lisa murmured, flipping the pages. And Liberty Airlines buried it. Marcus leaned forward. The last guy? Do we know what happened to him? Lisa nodded, lips pressing into a thin line. Derek Walker, senior vice president at a private equity firm. After the accusation, he resigned, disappeared from the industry. Marcus exhaled sharply. So she didn't just ruin his career, she erased him. Lisa tapped her nails against the desk. And now she's trying to do the same to you. Marcus clenched his jaw. Not if I expose her first. Lisa hesitated. This is huge, Marcus. But if we use stolen documents, I don't care. Lisa studied him. Then we need to time this perfectly. If we move too soon, they'll spin it against you. Marcus glanced at the clock. His mind raced. He wasn't just up against Sophia anymore. He was up against an entire system designed to protect people like her. He took a slow breath. Then we hit them where it hurts. Lisa's eyes narrowed. And where's that? Marcus's voice was ice cold. The press. The next morning, the first leak hit the media. An independent journalist, not tied to any major network, published the report. The headline was stark. Flight attendant accusing Marcus Johnson linked to prior false allegations. It spread like wildfire. Social media exploded. Wait, she's done this before? Why didn't we hear about Derek Walker? Is Liberty Airlines covering something up? By noon, major outlets had no choice but to report on it. And that's when the real damage began. Marcus stood by his window, watching the world burn. The same people who had crucified him yesterday were now scrambling for a new villain, Sophia Carter. The first sign of panic came when her social media accounts disappeared. Then Sky North Airlines issued a statement denying involvement in any conspiracy. But it was too late. The narrative was shifting. Lisa called. Marcus, Liberty Airlines just scheduled a press conference. Marcus's stomach twisted. To do what? Lisa's voice was sharp. They're about to cut her loose. Sophia was no longer useful to them. Marcus clenched his fists. They thought they could sacrifice her and walk away clean. But he wasn't done yet, not even close. Marcus stood in front of the TV in Lisa's office, watching the live press conference. The Liberty Airlines spokesperson, a middle-aged man in a tailored navy suit, adjusted his tie before stepping up to the podium. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. Liberty Airlines has always prioritized the safety and well-being of both our passengers and employees, he began, voice steady, rehearsed. After conducting an internal investigation, we have determined that the allegations made by our flight attendant, Miss Sophia Carter, against Mr. Marcus Johnson do not meet the standard of credibility required for disciplinary action. Marcus felt the corners of his mouth twitch. There it was, the first crack. The spokesperson continued, effective immediately, Miss Carter has been placed on indefinite leave, pending further review of previous claims she has made while employed at Liberty Airlines. Lisa exhaled next to him. They're throwing her under the bus. Marcus shook his head. They're trying to control the damage. If they fire her outright, they're admitting fault. This way, they leave a back door open. Lisa frowned. She's still on their payroll? For now. And that meant she was still dangerous. A reporter in the press pool stood up. Does Liberty Airlines acknowledge the allegations that Miss Carter has made false accusations in the past? The spokesperson's expression didn't waver. We take all accusations seriously. At this time, we cannot comment on any previous cases involving Miss Carter. Marcus scoffed. Cowards. The screen flickered, cutting to a news anchor. Breaking now, Sophia Carter's credibility is in question, and Liberty Airlines is distancing itself. What does this mean for Marcus Johnson's case? And what role did Sky North Airlines executive Richard Owens play in this scandal? We'll discuss after the break. Marcus turned off the TV, His pulse was steady, but he wasn't celebrating yet. Lisa sat on the edge of her desk, arms crossed. She's cornered, Marcus. The company won't back her, and the media is turning against her. You've won. Marcus's jaw tightened. Number, not yet. She hasn't spoken, he muttered. Lisa's brow furrowed. What? She hasn't said a word since the story flipped. Marcus tapped his fingers against the desk. She's hiding. Lisa shrugged. She probably lawyered up. She's got no moves left. Marcus shook his head. Sophia Carter wasn't the type to go down quietly. And if he had learned anything over the past few weeks, it was that people like her didn't play fair. Marcus's prediction came true 2 days later. At exactly 10 a.m., a grainy surveillance video surfaced online. The headline was like a bullet. New footage suggests Marcus Johnson threatened Sophia Carter after landing. Marcus's stomach dropped. He clicked the video immediately. It showed the airport terminal, moments after the flight had landed. There he was, standing near the security checkpoint, his face clear, his posture tense. And Sophia, standing a few feet away, visibly shaken, clutching her arms. The video had no audio, but the body language was damning. Lisa's phone exploded with calls. Marcus ran a hand through his hair. They edited this. Lisa nodded, already analyzing the clip. It's cropped. We need the full footage. Marcus gritted his teeth. Someone, probably Owens, had held on to this footage, waiting for the right moment. Now that Sophia was losing, they gave her one last weapon. Lisa's assistant burst into the office, laptop in hand. You're going to want to see this. She turned the screen toward them. A live press conference was happening. Sophia Carter. She sat at a table, flanked by 2 attorneys. Her makeup was minimal, her eyes puffy, her voice trembling as she spoke into the microphone. I have been silenced and vilified, she said, voice deliberately fragile. The man who harmed me is now using his power to destroy me. Marcus let out a bitter laugh. She was playing victim again. Lisa folded her arms. This is a last-ditch effort. She's lost her corporate backing, so now she's going public. Marcus stared at the screen. He wasn't surprised. She wasn't trying to win. She was trying to survive, and she was betting that public sympathy could still protect her. Lisa glanced at him. So, what do we do? Marcus leaned forward, his voice cold. We bury her for good. Marcus stood in the middle of Lisa's office, eyes locked on the screen as Sophia's voice trembled through the speakers. I never wanted any of this, she said, brushing away a fake tear. I only wanted justice. Marcus let out a slow exhale. Justice? Lisa muted the broadcast, turning to him. We have 2 options, she said. We let the media battle this out, or we end it today. Marcus cracked his knuckles. How fast can we get the full surveillance footage? Lisa's assistant, Dylan, was already typing. I called in a favor from an airport security contact. We'll have it in an hour. Marcus nodded. Good, because I'm not letting her rewrite the truth. Lisa studied him carefully. You realize that if we release this, there's no going back. This won't just clear your name, it'll destroy her. Marcus's voice was steady. She made that choice the moment she sold her soul to Owens. Lisa exhaled. Then let's finish this. An hour later, the unedited footage arrived. Lisa projected it onto the office screen. It started the same way as Sophia's cropped version, Marcus standing near security, his posture tense. But then the angle widened, revealing the full scene. Sophia wasn't standing alone. She was with Richard Owens. Lisa leaned in. Oh my God! Owens was speaking to her, his hand gripping her wrist just before she walked towards security. Then, as Marcus turned his head, Owens stepped back, out of frame. Lisa's assistant let out a low whistle. That's it. That's the setup. She wasn't scared of Marcus. She was taking orders. Marcus stared at the screen. They had her. Lisa reached for her phone. Who do we send this to? Marcus's lips curled into a sharp smirk. Everyone. The footage was leaked within the hour, and the world erupted. New footage proves Marcus Johnson was set up. Sophia Carter caught meeting with Sky North executive. Did Sky North Airlines pay to frame Liberty CEO's son? Marcus Johnson cleared. But will Sophia Carter face consequences? By noon, Sophia's press conference was canceled. By evening, her lawyers quit, and by morning she was arrested. Marcus watched it unfold from his apartment, phone in hand. Lisa called. "It's over," she said. "The DA is pressing charges against her. False accusations, conspiracy, corporate fraud. She's done." Marcus exhaled, tension finally leaving his body. "And Owens?" Lisa chuckled. "Sky North fired him this morning. Apparently the board doesn't like executives getting caught on tape blackmailing people." Marcus let out a dry laugh. "Go figure," Lisa hesitated. "Marcus, you did it." Marcus walked toward his window, watching the city lights. "No," he murmured. "We did it." A long pause. Then Lisa spoke again. "So, what now?" Marcus smiled. "Now, I make sure this never happens to anyone else." The screen in front of him displayed his next step, a legal fund dedicated to helping victims of false accusations. Sophia was gone. Owens was finished. But Marcus, he was just getting started. And there you have it, a story of deception, power, and justice. Marcus Johnson's life was nearly destroyed by a lie. But he didn't just fight for himself. He exposed a corrupt system that had ruined others before him. His story is a reminder that the truth doesn't always win easily, but with persistence, it can break through even the darkest conspiracies. So, what do you think? Was justice truly served? And how many other stories like Marcus's are still buried, waiting to be uncovered? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear from you. If you found this story gripping, make sure to subscribe so you never miss our next deep dive into the untold truths behind the headlines. Hit that notification bell. We'll see you in the next one.